Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be looking at wheels and bearings for a trailer. This is a Keystone camper. Most of your trailers are going to be the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a boat trailer, utility trailer, what have you. What I'm doing today is greasing the hubs, the wheel bearings. Now on this particular trailer I have bearing buddies, which is this piece here. Now I didn't film while I was installing these. They're super easy to install. Once you take off the dust cap, all you really need is a rubber mallet or even a regular hammer like this one. A piece of wood block will help if you don't want to dent them up. And they just hammer right onto the end of the hub. Now what that does, this has a rubber plug right in the center of it, which can be removed. Kind of like so. Just pushes on there. Just a dust cover is what that is. Now in center of this bearing buddy, there is a greaser that allows you to use your grease gun. That'll fit on the end just like so, and you can maintain wheel bearings so they don't run dry. This allows you to put grease in them the easy way. Pumping the grease, you can see it's forcing the old grease out, and that's what you want. You want the old grease that's pretty much contaminated out. So we'll wipe the excess grease off with a rag. The best way to do it is have a jack underneath to where the wheel can turn freely. That way you can grease, so the grease can get into all sides of the bearing. That's the best way to do that. That's something I don't have time for this time. I'll do that next time. When you do put these bearing buddies in, you want to make sure your center cap is not going to interfere with them. So you want to make sure the center cap has enough length to cover them. And in my case, I've gone with the open end. So there's a cap right in the center. That's removable. And then you can grease the bearings without having to take the wheel off or the center cap off. When you don't maintain them, they run dry, and that'll chew up your bearing and your hub. So I would recommend installing these bearing buddies on all the axles to do the maintenance, and that makes it a lot easier. You want to make sure you put the rubber plug back on, the dust cover. Sometimes it feels like they don't want to push on and seal. It's usually just air trapped in there, so you want to take a screwdriver on one edge and lift it up, release the air, and it should pop right back in place. Put your center covers back on, the caps. When you're putting the grease in these hubs, if you see a lot of water, dirt, or even rust coming out, you want to stop and take that hub apart, take the bearings out, and make sure everything's okay in there. Again, just because you got bearing buddies and you're able to pump grease in there doesn't mean you don't have to ever take them apart. In my case, these bearings were put on new, bearing buddies were put on at the beginning of the season here. So this is just a maintenance to make sure they don't run dry. So every trip I check them, I pump some new grease into them. So again, you do want to, once a season at least, take them apart, inspect the bearings, replace if necessary, and repack them. Now when you're pumping grease in, if it seems like it doesn't come out the front, now remember, it does. A lot of people ask if it also greases a rear bearing doing it this way. It absolutely does. When you're pumping grease into that center hub here, the grease is going through the bearing into the hub, through the back bearing, and once it hits the seal in the back, if your seal's good, the grease hits that and it starts to travel back this way. That's why you see it coming out the front. So it does grease all the bearings in that hub. Unless your back seal is bad, the grease will actually start to flow through the back of the hub and coming out that way. You don't want to do that. You don't want to get grease on your brakes. Any of the braking system, that'll contaminate and you'll end up replacing all the brakes. So if your seals are good, bearings are good, this is fairly easy to do. It's a good way to maintain these and keep them from running dry. So that's something you want to do. Depending on how many miles you're putting on them, you want to check it usually every trip. Okay, fairly easy to do. I'll leave some links for the bearing buddies, grease gun, and all the stuff that was used to maintain this. Thank you for watching.